Hello, I'm Amy Biggetti, a librarian here at Northeast State. Today, I want to show you how to complete historical research with library resources and beyond. First, how do you start your historical research? First, what I like to do is make sure I understand the assignment and what kind of sources it requires. Part of that is doing a little bit of pre-research. If I haven't already, I make sure to read about the time period my subject covers in my textbook. I also look at any supplemental materials my teacher provides. Another thing I do sometimes is go onto Google and look up my subject and the time period. Just in case, I want more information than what's in the textbook, since I might need something a little more specific. While Wikipedia and other sites may not be acceptable for scholarly research, they're just fine for getting a sense of what's going on at the time. After I read up on the time period, I start thinking about search terms to use for my research. I start out with the topic of my assignment. For our purposes, let's say I have to write a paper about the life of a silversmith in colonial New England. You need to think of search terms that are both very focused and narrow, and search terms that cover a much larger part of the history of your topic, a broad view of the time. I like to start out with narrow terms that are very focused, so I would search for silversmith and colonial America. Or I can use alternate narrow terms. For instance, instead of silversmith, I could say silver work and colonial America. Or instead of colonial America, I could switch it up and use 18th century United States. Or maybe even like silver worker or silversmith and Revolutionary War United States. If you're lucky, when you use these terms, you'll get lots of results in the library's databases and online catalog. However, research is not often that easy. If you don't find the information you need, you should try to think of broader terms that cover your topic. Instead of using silversmith, you could try metalsmith or craftsman or just smith, along with the various different versions of the time period. Even more broad might be life in colonial America or life in revolutionary America, or history of metal workers. There are so many different search terms that you can try that might be useful for finding information. Once you have a solid idea about the time period you're researching and your search terms ready, you can start your actual research. I usually start either in the library's online collection for physical books, because books are great sources for historical materials. Let's go ahead and take a look at the library's online catalog. To get to the library's online catalog, first you need to go to the Northeast State homepage, go from students down to library. Easy peasy. Next, you can either start by searching the catalog on our homepage for this bar, but I actually like it to go in through the link here to the actual library catalog itself. Now, the first thing you do is you want to type one of your search terms in. So let's type in silversmith. And then we need to limit it down to library collections. And then instead of all libraries, let's limit it down to Northeast State and hit search. Now, this is going to give us results of books and ebooks that are available here at the library, as well as some other online materials as well. For instance, you can see Paul Revere, The Midnight Rider, is a little video here. That's one of the things you might actually, when you're looking this up, find out in your pre-research, is Paul Revere, who is famous for his Midnight Ride, also was a silversmith. So that's another search term that might be useful for you in your work. But for right now, you can see we have a book called The Day in the Life of a Colonial Silversmith. That one might be useful. And it's available online. But let's see if we have anything available in the library. That's physical books. To find the physical books, you would limit your results to Held by Library. And let's see. We have the book Johnny Tremain, which is actually what gave me the idea for this, because I loved this book as a child. However, it's a kid's fictional book, so it wouldn't be a good source. And there is a book about silver here, but let's see. This looks more about like silver materials versus actual like silversmithing. So I don't think this would be a good source either. Now, since we don't have any good physical sources, we want to go back and look at the ebooks. And this did not load correctly, so we're going to refresh this, which sometimes happens. And you can see here now, under our filters, it says Held by Library. We can X off that filter, and that goes back to our original results. And we can say Available Online. Now, it's only showing materials that are available online instead of books that are physically in the library as well. So let's see. A Day in the Life of a Colonial Silversmith. Wow, that one actually sounds pretty good. Let's see. Anything else? That looks like about the only one. So let's click on this. And we can see this is available in our EBSCO ebook database. And we can look around. Okay, and see. And there's one thing that's going to tell you here that this may not actually be a great book. New York Power Kids Press. Anytime you have books, you need to always make sure that you do use books that are at a college level. And when you see things like Kids Press, it's a good indication it might not be a good book. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't explore it. So let's go over here and click on the link to our EBSCO ebook collection. Now, at this point, you can see here that it's A Day in the Life of a Colonial Silversmith. Let's scroll down a little, look at the record, and you can see in the categories it's a juvenile nonfiction. Now, if you want to go through and take a look at this, there might be some interesting content in here as far as it goes, just for the fun of it, but this is not going to be an appropriate source for your paper because it is juvenile nonfiction. And books like this occasionally do in the databases slip through into our collections. So again, you always have to be critical of your sources and make sure they're appropriate for your work. And this just happens to be a good example of that. Okay, so let's go back to our PowerPoint slide. Now, on this slide, you can see I'm going to talk a little bit about using the library's history databases to find materials. And part of that is going to include our EBSCO ebook collection, our JSTOR database, and a couple of the other history databases as well. Let's go to the library homepage. And the first thing you're going to do is go to our online databases. And there's a link here and here. Either one works. And you'll see our A to Z databases. Now, you're more than welcome to use our broad coverage databases if you like. But we do have these subject databases that help you get more specific materials about what you're researching. So what I would do personally is go in under All Subjects, scroll down until you find History, click on it. Now, the first one I'm going to go over is our JSTOR database. JSTOR is a wonderful tool. And it's a little bit different than our other databases, though. So what I would do first, just a simple search. Let's start out with Silversmith and hit enter. Now we got over 5,000 results, so obviously we need to make this search a little more specific. So let's go and put in Colonial America and see what happens. That brings us down to 1,238 results. Now, there's lots of different ways you can actually bring this lower. But I think for our purposes, you can go ahead and look through and see that there's a lot of different articles here that might be useful. So here is a New York Jewish silversmith of the 18th century. Meyer, silversmith in the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue ledger. Nope. That does not sound like the United States. Geislin, Philadelphia's first gold silversmith. Some Boston silversmiths of colonial date. Let's see. Silversmiths and Society in America, 1650 through 1850. All of these articles, look, The Craft of Silversmith in Early New England. All these articles look like they would be perfect for our purposes. For this paper, when you're in here, you can also, again, search within the results to make them even smaller. Or you can also use, and I do this a lot, I'll go in and look at the topics and see if there's anything here that I think would work perfectly for my, like history, for instance. I could click on that. But that would help limit it down to subjects that would be useful for my paper. Okay? So anyway, let's go ahead and pick an article here really quick just to show you how to use it. And Silversmiths and a Society in America. Now you can tell this is a journal article, and if you need a stable URL or to go and make sure to get back to it, it's right here. Also, we have a citation generator right here that you can click on if you need to copy your citation. Just always remember that you need to make sure to double check it for mistakes, and then you can go in here and you can see 27 search matches. Now that means that you're going to find the word silversmith 27 times in this book. You can click on it and it'll actually take you to the pages with the results. But since this is pretty much about Silversmith and Society in America, this is probably an article, since it's only 6 pages, that you really just want to read through and see what kind of material's in it that would be helpful to you. You can also download the PDF and then print it off if you're the kind of person who likes a paper copy. It's really handy. So anyway, that's how you use JSTOR. Next, let's go into our EBSCO ebook database. Now, our EBSCO ebook database is one of those general sources that were on the A to Z Databases homepage, but there's a lot of people who give input about what's purchased in this collection, and some of them are our history department teachers, and I always think that that means that this is a really good collection to use for your work. So let's go ahead and search for silversmiths. Silversmiths. And let's go ahead and put Colonial America and see what happens. Okay, we didn't get any good results. Let's go ahead and take out Colonial America. Now remember, you can always make your search broader versus narrow. Now here's something interesting. They talk about the Navajo and Pueblo silversmiths. Probably not exactly though what we're looking for since we're doing colonial period, like around and before the Revolutionary War. So again, we see, a day in the life of colonial silversmith, but you can see here it's that same juvenile nonfiction book we saw. So we're at a point where we're like, I didn't find anything like I thought I would immediately in this book, in this search. So this is when you go back to your other search terms and your pre-research to get ideas to try to find materials in the databases. So instead of silversmith, let's put in Paul Revere and hit search. Now, as you can see, we have some, let's see, we have at least one biography of Paul Revere. And if you click on this, and then you go into the table of contents, you can see one chapter called An Artesian and a Freemason. You can click on that and see what it talks about as far as his experience of being a silversmith or a silversmith apprentice, which is a big part of life back then, being an apprentice, because you have to learn your trade. It's a very serious thing. Let's see. Okay. Also, you can go into the index. Let's look in the S's. Now, this looks mostly like people's names. So I don't see anything here that would be totally helpful. But if you go back into the chapter here, this talks about Paul Revere's ending of his apprenticeship. So this can give you a good idea of what it's like to actually live in that time period as a silversmith. So again, useful source, and all of this information is going to come from that pre-research where you learned that Paul Revere, a famous American, was a silversmith. But let's just say this is a book you want to explore further. So let's go back. And again, you can go and download this book if you want. You can just use it online. Again, we have this little citation button that you can use. We have permalinks. I always suggest to students to save the citation and permalink inside a works cited page or a references page, just to keep up with the sources you find. And you can always correct the citations later, but I have so many students say, I found the perfect book and I can't find it again. Or I found the perfect article, I can't find it again. And so we have to recreate their whole search to try to find that one article. So again, saving your work as you go is a really good tip. All right, but let's go ahead and leave EBSCO to go back to a couple of our other databases. So here we are back at our A to Z database page. We're going to go to all subjects and history again. And you can see through here there's descriptions with these databases. And the ones that probably work best are the ones with American history for our purposes. So we'll click on this first one. It's an EBSCO database. And I'm going to go quickly through this just because we've already went through EBSCO ebooks, and they're very similar in their format and setup. So let's do silversmith, colonial America, and see what pops up. Now, this one says your initial search did not yielding results. However, results were found based on the keywords. So let's see. Look, it's got a description of the life of a colonial silversmith in Portsmouth. Paul Revere, Artesian on View. And it's from the New York Historical Society. Let's see. Illustrated Americana of the Revolution. That looks more like it might be more about the pieces he created versus the actual life of a silversmith. So, let's try Silver Worker and leave it there. And we're still getting a lot of the same stuff. Let's see, here's another silversmith. Here's one. Let's see if this is an art book or not. It's a book review about a book about silver pieces made during that time period. So that's not going to be useful for you. But the one about Daniel Greenell, colonial silversmith of Portsmouth, might be. Now what you can do is click on this article, and you can see it's about silversmith, goldsmith, blacksmiths, and you can go and read through it by clicking on the PDF full text and get an idea about what was going on with this man and whether or not this would be a useful article for you to use. Let's go on to the other database I want to show you. So we're back here on our history databases page. If you scroll down, you'll see U.S. History Gale OneFile. Let's click on that one. And let's see. Let's try Silver Smith again. And we'll just, again, do a simple search and see what pops up. You can see we've got academic journal articles. Now, some of your teachers may require you to do peer-reviewed articles. Some may not. If they do, you can click on that right here. But the first thing we see is New England Silver and Silversmithing, 1620 to 1825. Let's see what else. So what we might want to do here is go and add in another search term to narrow our searches, even though this first article is just perfect. So we go into search within, and let's type in colonial America. Now we're down to 9 articles, and let's see. I think the first article is going to be our best bet. So let's click on that. And let's see. After skimming through this looks more like it's less about silversmithing than about articles written for the Colonial Society of Massachusetts. So again, sometimes you go in there, oh, it's a book review, which is not going to be useful for your work. I may cut this one out. So let's go back to the results, and let's see. We can also again try that Paul Revere. And see if anything there sort of goes and looks like it might go and be useful for our work. Okay, I'm not seeing a whole lot. And this is some of the things that's going to happen to you when you're doing your research. You may not immediately find a lot of sources. Now, when you can't find research sources that you need in the library databases, sometimes you have to turn towards Google. And there's tons of different sources that you can use and find on Google that might be useful. The bibliography from Wikipedia. Again, Wikipedia is not a good scholarly source, but you might find some information on Wikipedia articles that are really helpful. You can look at blogs. Again, this is one of those things that you have to go and carefully look at the blog to see whether or not it's scholarly. If the person who wrote it is a professor from a college, and this is just his pet topic in history, then yes, it's probably scholarly because he has a reputation to uphold. But if it's written by like Silversmith Fan 48 and has all kinds of typos and no references, then you probably do not want to use that as a source. You can look at other online libraries. A lot of states have archives and libraries of their own on a state level. Some cities, like for instance Boston, might have like a Boston Historical Society you can use for researching, or the Boston Public Library. And some of these people will have information just on their sites about this on their online libraries that you can access. Again, the historical societies have always been very helpful, especially when I'm researching materials in England. Again, we have the archives. We have the United States Library of Congress, which has wonderful sources on so many different topics. You can go to museums. You could see if the Boston Museum had information. I already mentioned historical societies. Another thing you can do is look for open resource dissertations and theses. On really obscure topics especially, you don't always find something in there, but if you just type this in, there's about 4 different open dissertation and thesis sites where you can go and search people's materials. And while most student work is not acceptable, theses and dissertations are acceptable for scholarly materials because these have been vetted by a group of professors and are basically a person's final hurdle to getting their master's degree or their doctorate. And so it means by this point they are an expert in their field or basically getting ready to become an official one. So these are sources that you can use. Another place that's surprising, if it's really obscure, is finding some history on local tourism sites. I've had to do that when I could not find information anywhere else about a topic. And sometimes it will just lead you to other places that might have information as well. Another place is the National Historical Parks. The Jamestown website, for instance, is a wonderful site for finding information about craftsmen. And Colonial Williamsburg, those kind of places. And other national historic parks, like through the National Park Service, they might have good information to help you. And again, when you Google, you're going to find other websites as well. What you have to do is be really careful and look at the websites critically, which takes us into the applying the CRAP test. Now, the CRAP test, and I borrowed this from the Merriam Library from California State University, but the CRAP test is basically different criteria you can use to decide whether or not a item that you Googled, a website, is scholarly. For historical purposes, currency is not always an issue, but in other ones it's very important, especially if you're looking up something with science or maybe the latest news on a political event, something like that, a news story. That's very important. Relevance. One of the important things to do is, does the website give you the information you need? Is it age appropriate? When you search for silversmiths, I found out that you're going to get some material on there that when you first glance at it, you're like, woohoo, this is great. But then you get in there and it's material that's geared toward like elementary or middle school students. That kind of material is not relevant to you because you need college level material. Okay? Now the next one is authority. Authority is important because you need someone to claim this as their own. And because they do that, they take pride in their work, and so that you know it's going to be good information. Like, for instance, if you go to a blog and you see that's written by a professor from Harvard, then and they've claimed it, they talk about why they're doing this blog, and their blog entries have sources, that you can trace and find more good information about it, then that's a scholarly blog. And again, though, if you have a blog where it's like Silversmith Fan 2020 and, it's full of mistakes, it doesn't have any bibliographies, anything like that, then you might want to be wary and not use it. Also, authority doesn't have to come from a person. It could come from an organization that has a reputation to upload. For instance, like if you get information from a museum, like for our case, we'll say the Boston Museum of Fine Art, then they have a reputation to uphold, so the information will be good. The same thing might be said of like the Boston Historical Society, if there is one. I always use a science one for my other classes, so the American Cancer Society, that sort of thing. Those people will have pages that may not have references or may not have someone attached to it with a reputation, but their organization is such that you can trust it. Now, accuracy is another big deal. If you see a website that has tons of mistakes, it's messy looking, nope, don't use it. If they don't care enough to edit their work, then they're not going to care enough to actually be accurate about it. And then the purpose. This one's easy. If you see like 50 million pop up, click on me now to buy this or that, or if you see that they're trying to persuade you to think a certain way, or they want to sell you stuff, just be leery. Their purpose is not pure. This is not going to be unbiased material, and you probably shouldn't use it. And again, if you want to reference this sheet, I'd be more than happy to email it to you. Just feel free to contact me at the library. Also, you can just Google crap test with 2 A's. It comes up anywheres. All right, then. Okay. So really quickly, I'm just going to give you an example of what pops up when we type in Silversmith in colonial times. You can tell I've already done this. Now, first thing you see is this entry about MrNospum.com. I've never heard of the website, but we're going to look at it and see. And this all involves, you get materials, but again, you might not go and get the materials you need. And the first thing you see up here is parents and teachers. So this is a website for teachers, and it looks like probably elementary school teachers. So this is not going to be a site that's going to have adult information for you to use. You can see that immediately. However, there's some videos here, and they're done by the Museum of Fine Arts, and this one actually is in Boston. And then the New York Historical Society and Colonial Williamsburg. These are all going to be videos of artisans who recreate silversmithing. And that might be something very helpful for you as a source for your paper. Because these people do this day in, day out, and are very knowledgeable about the history of their craft. I've actually been to Colonial Williamsburg. It is awesome. And let's look again. Okay, this lamb silver, let's see what it's about. Early American silver and coins. Wait a minute. They're trying to sell us stuff. Now, this might be a website. If you decide you want some pictures of early American silver work to add to your paper for maybe images or illustrations, this might be great. But, and you do, of course, have to cite it. But as far as the information, again, they're trying to sell you stuff. That's their main purpose. So, we can skip that. Let's look over here. Encypedia. Now, this is Encypedia. Let's open it up, see what we can find about it. It is about this site, contact criminals, having privacy. They have state encyclopedias. And this is part of the State Library of North Carolina. Now this does look a little simplistic, but let's at least take a look at the source. It does have a section for educators. Okay. But let's go back to the source and at least glance through it. And look, there's some references here that might be useful. You can see there's some books here. And let's see. Like, here is additional the North Carolina Office of Archives has some information. So some of these sources might be useful. But again, you're just going to have to explore them. Let's go back to the results. I think that's right here. And here's one on silversmithing in Wikipedia. But you can see they don't really cover the United States. So, again, not going to be the most useful tool. And that's what it is when going to Google. You're going to have to go through sources again and again and again and be like, okay, maybe this is here, maybe this isn't. And keep searching for stuff. Also, you might want to go and use some of the related searches down here. Remember, try different keywords. We're coming up with that juvenile book we found in the EBSCO search first thing, of course. That's more books. And remember, you can always try other places too. Don't forget, try Paul Revere. There might be some good information on him as a silversmith. Look, paulreverehouse.org. Let's see. The Boston Tea Party ship. Let's see. You might find some good information by searching that or adding in silversmith. The point is to be persistent, be critical of the materials you do find, and try different searches, try different materials to see what you find. Now, here's the deal though. You don't need to search for hours and hours and hours. If you can't find something, don't go to the point where you get frustrated or you're miserable. What you need to do is go and talk to your librarians if you get to that point where you're not finding what you need. You don't have the materials you need. If you go to the library homepage, and I showed you how to do that earlier, go to this Get Help button. From here, you can submit a question, you can call us, you can text us, you can email us. If the librarian's online, and we are most of the time from the moment we open the building to about half an hour before we close, you can chat with us online. And as long as we're here on campus, you can schedule an appointment. You can do a one-on-one appointment, or I can at least, and other librarians too, can do a Zoom appointment where we can help you online. And believe me when I say we want to help you guys. We really want you to be successful as students. So anyway, this is just some of the information I wanted to share with you about researching in history and finding good sources. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us anytime. Good luck. Bye-bye.